Bienvenue à tous. Welcome to Reporters here on France 24. I'm Mark Owen. In this edition, Somalia, a place known as a failed state, a place where warlords, pirates and Islamist terrorists hold sway. But in the north of the country, they've been reinforcing security and stability. Somaliland, with a population of just 3.5 million, declared itself independent when the wider country fell into anarchy in 1991. Since then, it's established rule of law, democratic process and religious tolerance, all factors which are driving a campaign for full recognition by the international community. Our correspondents Duncan Woodside and Sarah Sarko look behind the scenes in this would-be nation-state.
Hargeisa, slap bang in the middle of town, a high-security prison.
Come on, get out.
Since 2010, this prison has been home to some of the most dangerous inmates in the region, including Islamic extremists and pirates. Somaliland's relative stability and security means that it's trusted to hold such prisoners by the international community.
Block A, Block B, Block C, and here the pirates.
Not fishermen. Yeah, fishermen.
Stand there and clear the way. Take them.
Commander, when can we play basketball?
Wait for your time. You four stand there. Now go.
The prison is funded by the United Nations and is held up as a model establishment. But some of the pirates are in shackles. They were chained up after an escape attempt in April, according to the prison's commander.
We decided to chain them for security reasons. We don't mean to keep them like this forever. We won't release all the chains at once, but gradually, hopefully.
I'm sad because I wanted to be taken to a jail near my home area instead.
Hosting criminals like these and coping with the attendant security risks helps Somaliland differentiate itself from neighbouring Somalia in the eyes of the international community. That's the security plan. But there's more. Modern shops, Western goods. Somaliland has many surprises. The self-proclaimed republic has its own president and its own money. Its inhabitants, Somalilanders, as they call themselves, are keen to assert their identity. When the call goes out to register for their national identity cards, people respond in large numbers.
We're in the process of registering ourselves. We want to tell the world to look at our security situation. We will never rejoin Somalia, you understand? That's all we want to tell the world.
Home to between 3.5 and 4 million people, Somaliland is campaigning for recognition as an independent nation-state. But it's still viewed as part of Somalia by the international community.
It's important to have my Somaliland ID card. I'm really happy because it represents my future. This is our future. This will be my passport, my birth certificate. I'll confirm my citizenship. Thank God I am here and I took it today. I'm very happy. Thank God.
It's a view strongly held by those who remember the Civil War, a 1980s conflict that pitched secessionists against Somalia's central government in Mogadishu. More than 50,000 people were killed, according to the authorities here in Hargeisa. Hada Ahmed Laig heads Somalia's War Crimes Commission. Over the last 10 years, he's sought to uncover and record the killings committed by the Somali army of the time.
Till to my death, I will just continue collecting these informations and witnesses till we get such people who has done these things in court. This is the reburial site of Hargeisa mass graves.
Thanks to the work of Hada and his team, the bodies are taken from mass graves and reburied individually.
And this is the first lot of 40 people 40 skeletons we have buried here, reburied.
According to Hadder, mass graves exist in every district of the city. Most date from 1988, the height of the Somali army's backlash against the rebellion.
The aeroplane was just getting up from the Hargeisa airport and bombing the city here, and people were escaping from that. When they were at the sides of the city, they were just collecting them and killing them and putting them in mass graves like this. So that we are expecting that the international community will understand this and give us recognition. If our international recognition is taking 1,000 years, we will remain a Somaliland Republic, and we will never again join our brothers, ex-brothers of Mogadishu.
This position is similar to that of Somaliland's head of state. Ahmed Mohamed Mohamud Silanyo is the 4th president of Somaliland after 3 peaceful transitions of power since independence in 1991. Like other presidents, his activities are surrounded by protocol. But here in the capital, he often leads his entourage on foot. A reflection of the extremely relaxed atmosphere surrounding the presidency. But being a president who isn't recognized by the international community has its drawbacks.
It means we cannot fully participate in international forums. We are not member of the United Nations. We cannot be entitled to all the rights of a fully participant country of the international community. But certainly, we on our own are trying our level best, and we are working very hard. The international community does engage with us.
So, how does Somaliland survive among its larger, recognised neighbours? To find out, we travel north to the coastal port of Berbera. And here is the lifeblood of the region: animal exports. More than 30% of gross domestic product is generated by livestock shipments, including camels, cattle, sheep and goats, according to World Bank data. The sector is carefully regulated. Each animal goes through one of 2 quarantine centres before being shipped to the Middle East.
Look, these sheep are suffering from edema. They will be culled out from an section.
Dr. Atwa came from Egypt in order to supervise this centre. He heads a local team which tests each animal for a range of diseases. A livestock ban imposed by Saudi Arabia in 2000, which lasted for 9 years, decimated Somaliland's livestock industry. As a result, testing is stringently enforced and follows the letter of legislation in export destinations.
Our skills is met the requirements and skill for persons. We have too much skill for persons. They are well trained and able for investigation all samples.
The appetite among Arab countries for Somali meat makes Berbera Port an economic nerve centre. But it's not had much impact on the daily lives of most people. For the first time, the World Bank has attempted to measure poverty in this self-proclaimed nation. According to provisional data, per capita income was $347 in 2012, less than $1 a day per person. If Somaliland had the status of a country, it'd be the world's 4th poorest. Little wonder that so many young people are fleeing. Deek and Huled are about to try to leave Somaliland for the 4th time.
I wanted to leave to go from here via Wajale, then to the Ethiopian capital, Addis Ababa, then on to Libya, and cross the sea, so I could go and live in Germany.
The government acknowledged in 2012 that at least 100 people were fleeing each month, often at great risk.
I know the people we were together died. Some of them have been arrested, Some of them died. I know that. I'm aware of that. My friends have died there. I know. But I'm ready for either death or life.
The challenges are not just economic. International organisations and local journalists are increasingly concerned by restrictions on the media. Ahmed has suffered the consequences of tensions between the government and the press. Sentenced to 3 years in prison for defamation earlier this year, he was released after a few weeks in prison.
This is my office, Somaliland Times. I worked in this media house, but now the police captured it and absolutely occupied it after we publish articles about corruption.
Since the start of this year, 3 media houses have been closed or banned from broadcasting. And since the start of 2013, 47 journalists have been imprisoned or harassed, according to the European Union.
Since the last 7 years, I'm working in Somaliland local media. It's the first time faced for me this problem.
The government denies that it's violating press freedoms. Somaliland seeks to portray a tolerant image. It also boasts a conservative but moderate brand of Islam, far from the extremism extolled by Al-Shabaab, which still controls parts of Somalia. But a military offensive in Somalia by African Union troops has forced the jihadists out of major urban centres, dispersing them across the region. Could this cause problems in Somaliland?
Well, I hope not. Our people, our religious community and our religious leaders are fully aware of this, and we are fully confident and cooperate with our religious community to ensure that security and peace is maintained in the country, and that Al-Shabaab is not, will not have a place in our country.
But in Hargeisa, there are concerns about the underground influence of Al-Shabaab, particularly on young people. A taboo subject that nobody, politicians, journalists or clerics, would address in front of our cameras.
Joining us now, our reporter Duncan Woodside. Duncan, thank you for your film. Thank you for joining us. When one thinks of Somalia, one thinks of Al-Shabaab. Tell us about the situation regarding that Islamist threat now.
That's right, yes. Al-Shabaab very much synonymous with Somalia over the last few years. It emerged from the Islamic Courts Union and held sway in much of Somalia until a few years ago. That was until an African Union force sponsored by the West began to fight Al-Shabaab and dislodge them out of urban strongholds in Somalia itself. Now, in terms of Somaliland, which is obviously this enclave within Somalia which views itself as independent, Al-Shabaab haven't had much visible influence. They did attack Hargeisa, the capital, with a triple suicide bombing in 2008. That claimed the lives of up to 30 people. But beyond that, there's not really been much overt activity by Al-Shabaab within Somaliland itself. Some people suggest that's because Ahmed Abdi Godane, the former emir of Al-Shabaab, was from Somaliland, and in fact he has family there still. Godane was killed by a US airstrike earlier this year. But there's also a suggestion, a belief that the authorities within Somaliland and also the older generation are very much against Al-Shabaab, and that's prevented them from being able to take root within Somaliland itself. But countering that, there does appear to be some influence of this militant group with younger people. Younger people are apparently being radicalized. That's according to one imam who we spoke to off the record in Hargeisa, and also external international sources as well. So a tension, I think, between the older generation, which is very much against Al-Shabaab, and younger disaffected elements who are being drawn towards the extremist ideology.
Interesting developments, Duncan. In terms of the independence push or claim, Somaliland independent, could it happen?
Well, that's the key question. Obviously, that's something that's being massively pushed by the Somaliland government itself. And I think we need to look at the historical roots here as well. In colonial times, Somalia was very much under the control of Italy, whereas Somaliland was a British protectorate. And in fact, in 1960, when the two entities gained their independence, Somaliland did stand on its feet for 5 days. before throwing its lot in with Somalia itself. The regime today in Somaliland describes that as a mistake, because what happened in the 1980s was that this independence movement, the Somali national movement, began to fight militarily against the Siad Barre regime. And of course, in the late 1980s, there was this repression of the movement, which resulted in a lot of civilian casualties. We don't know how many exactly. There's no independent corroboration of the 50,000 figure touted by the Somaliland authorities, but certainly many people did die, and that's resulted in a lot of animosity between Somaliland and Somalia itself. So that when Somalia imploded in 1991, we have this situation where Somaliland asserted its independence. Now, in terms of the chances of that being recognised, really at the moment there doesn't seem much prospect. We interviewed the President Silano, and he himself acknowledged that there are huge obstacles towards recognition by the international community, because most member states, particularly Western nations, are investing so much in trying to create a federal structure in Somalia itself. What's also worth bearing in mind is that any recognition of Somaliland would have to come initially from within the African Union. That's a multilateral body, and the member states of the African Union are very resistant towards any recognition of Somaliland in a context where they don't really want to stoke secessionist tendencies within their own countries. So for now, it appears that Somaliland will continue to trundle along effectively in this limbo state, whereby they get no recognition and find it very difficult to operate on the international stage.
But incredibly interesting that Somaliland seems stable, whereas neighbouring Somalia, again, as you've just told us, in this state where it needs to be brought into line, it needs to have something imposed there that works, it needs to be brought from being an anarchic state into something that functions. Duncan, fascinating stuff. Thank you very much indeed. Duncan Woodside's report can be seen, of course, again on our website, france24.com. Do stay with us. This is Reporters. You're watching France 24.